All right, so there you have it. This is lesson 20, and you just heard me playing over a progression that had a very distinctive kind of sound to the scale and the mode I was playing. And we're going to talk about that in this lesson here today. You'll notice that I was using a major sounding scale. I was playing a lot of this note when I was in the key of C. I was playing the major third a lot. I was playing the fifth a lot. But I did include a lot of this note along the way. I was playing the flat 7. Okay, so I want to talk about that scale that I'm implying when I play that. If I play a major scale like this, but I have a flat 7, right? Let's compare how that works. Okay, I have a C major scale here written so you can see what that looks like. But over here behind me, you can see that I have another scale where the B natural is flatted, okay? And what would that be if you have a C major scale with a B flat? Okay, well, let's think about that. What's the only key that has a B flat in it, and only a B flat? That would be the key of F major. Okay, well, let's see. If you think about it, does that make sense? C is the fifth note of F major, and it's the fifth chord. When you harmonize it, becomes C7. So that makes sense. The C7 is the result of harmonizing the F major scale from the fifth degree, and in this case, you get a C Mixolydian scale harmonized from the fifth degree, and that's called a Mixolydian scale. Okay, it's the fifth mode of a major scale, and in this case, it's the fifth mode of an F major scale. So the fifth mode of F is C Mixolydian, and that's the scale we're going to be playing today. Okay, so how does a Mixolydian scale come in handy? Well, it obviously comes in handy over dominant chords, and it comes in handy in any situation where you can use a dominant chord that doesn't have any alterations or extensions that are altered or outside the key. So it comes in great for blues progressions or over diatonic chord progressions that use dominant chords, okay? So in this progression right here, listen to how I was using. I was using a C7 going to a G minor 7. So that was a nice little Mixolydian sounding progression. Listen to how great it sounds. Okay, so just a little taste of it there to give you the feel of it. But I'm essentially playing an F major scale, but I'm seeing it against the C chord, so it gives me a little bit of a little bit more bluesy feel. It gives me a bright bluesy sound, but still more bluesy than the straight major sound, which is more appropriate for a major 7 kind of situation. Okay, so a good way to start practicing this scale right away is to take a new sequence or develop a new sequence vocabulary. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a new sequence of diatonic 6 intervals. Up till now we've studied thirds, and we've studied fourths recently. Today we're going to learn diatonic sixth in C Mixolydian, which is basically F as we know now, but it's going to be C7, right? So C Mixolydian is going to be like a C7 chord, so it's going to be diatonic 6. So we're going to be playing from this F major pattern right here, thinking of it as a C7 sound, and we're going to play 6 intervals. So check this out. It's going to sound like this. As we keep going back down. Okay, so that's essentially an F major scale starting from C, playing diatonic 6 intervals, but it's going to sound like C Mixolydian when I play a C7 chord. Okay, so there it is written on the board. Let's check it out, nice and slow. if you haven't been working on your music notation reading up here, you're just going to have to work it out kind of slowly with me. It's an F major scale, every 6th degree, right? And it's just a sequence now to get your fingers warmed up with Mixo. Okay, here we go, nice and slow. 3, 4. Okay? Now make sure when you're doing this exercise that you're trying to keep your fingers in their most efficient fingering, right? You don't want to do something like, let's say this, right, where you're basically getting out of position by doing that. So you want to use the best fingering here. Notice I did here 2, 1, 3, 4. That makes it more efficient that way. Okay, so you might be saying, well, that's just a major scale sequence. How can I make that interesting? What can I do with that? Well, there's a lot of things you can start doing if you just mess around with the rhythm. If you just play around with the rhythm and play more syncopated ideas with the sequence, it'll start to sound more interesting. So check this out. I'll just mess around with it. Okay, so, I added some other stuff along the way there, and I also did go to the B minor chord, because that's part of my progression. But the point is, I stuck with these 6 intervals, and I made music out of them by using rhythms and improvising around the scale pattern and incorporating the 6 intervals, and along with some other things to make it have a little bit more interest. Okay, so intervals of any kind can be used in your soloing for an enhanced kind of melodic feature to your playing. Okay, so don't forget those. So that's what you want to study now for your technique this week. 6 intervals. Up and down. And so forth. Okay, so let's talk about something else now that's going to be part of our lesson today. Okay, so as we know, we've covered major 7th arpeggios. We've learned all 5 positions of them, and that's a great accomplishment, but we have to keep moving on because there's other types of chords that are the result of harmonizing the major scales we've learned. Okay, so one of the chords that's very important in a harmonized major scale is a dominant 7th chord. Okay, and we know now that that's the 5th chord of a major key, so we got to learn dominant 7th chords in 5 positions, just like we learned major 7th chords in 5 positions. But knowing what we know about major 7th chords and knowing all the shapes, we're gonna have a lot easier time learning these new arpeggios. So let's just take a few of them right now and modify them to make dominant 7th chords. Okay? So let's take a handle here. This is the first one I want to work on. Is the built off the 6th degree. All we have to do basically is identify the 7th of the arpeggio and go, okay, wait a minute. We know it's a dominant 7, so it has to be there if it's going to be a dominant 7. And instead of the major 7 on the top, we want to bring it down to the flat 7, but to make it playable, we put it right here. So that means we bring it over here now. Okay, so we get rid of the major 7th here and the major 7th here. And now we've got a dominant 7th. there. Let's double check that. That sounds good. It sounds like a dominant seventh. And I actually like to include one more note here on the top as the third because it sounds so good to have that on top. Okay, so don't forget about that third on top. You can just stretch out a little bit more to get that. Okay, so we'll learn that one today, and then we'll also deal with the seventh chord from this position. That would essentially be C major 7 right here. Major seventh would have been right here and right here, but we're going to play a dominant 7. So we got to modify that and find it here and basically bring it down a half step. We've got our flat 7 there. And this major seventh would have been right here on this string, but now since it's a flat 7, it's within the pattern. Pretty playable there. Actually one more flat 7 here in the bottom on this one. So now we've got another shape. We've got this shape. Okay. So that's a pretty nice position too. It feels pretty comfortable, and you can see when you play the chord how easy it is to visualize. Okay, so we're just going to deal with those two shapes today. So forget about these shapes over here. These are dominant sevenths right here. So let's just define that here. Dominant seventh, and that's what we're doing right here, and these shapes. Okay, so don't worry about these guys right here. We'll talk about these in another day. Okay, so what I want to do now is play over the simple progression just to kind of put these together for you. So the progression is simply this. I'm going to write it on the board. I'll be right back. Okay, so let's apply our new our intervals that we've learned and our two new arpeggios over our simple progression here that's going to put it all together for us. Okay, now you'll notice that I have the two chords written out, C7 and G minor 7. That's going to define the key of C Mixolydian really nicely for us, so we'll be able to use these arpeggios. So let's just take a stab at those. But you'll see that there's another chord I threw in there just for a departure from C Mixo to give us a little a place to go with our ear, and that's B Dorian. And we've already studied Dorian scales by now, so we talked about that, and I think it was in the lesson 14, I believe, we covered Dorian. So we know that a B Dorian scale is nothing more than the second mode of a major scale. So when we're playing B Dorian, we're essentially just playing A major. Okay, so that's what I want you to do on the B minor 7 chord is just play an A major scale from this position. So that's going to be right there in that position. So it works out perfectly because C Mixo is right here, and the C7 arpeggio is all right there, and then B Dorian is all right in this position. So I purposely put them together so that it would be comfortable to play these two keys together, but it would still sound good. Okay, so check it out. Let's go ahead and play our C7 arpeggios first, and then when we get to the B minor 7 chord, I want you to just play, the key of A. Don't worry about any particular arpeggio. Okay, here we go. 3, 4. Let's go ahead and do that again. Now here's B Dorian. Back to C7. Okay, let's go double time now. Again. Now here's B Dorian. third position down here. Here we go. Now, B Dorian. This is the A major right there. C Mixolydian or C7. Double time that one. Again. Now here's A, B Dorian. Back to C mixo or C7. Okay, now I'm going to play it in addition to the F scale right here. There's A major. Notice the way I really nailed the flat 7. Right, here's the whole scale. There's an A major. Okay, so it's just fun to be able to negotiate through those two keys like that using a variety of our devices. And in this case, not very much, just two arpeggio shapes right there. But really understanding how to get the most out of the arpeggio shapes by nailing the correct chord tones in the downbeat. In this case, hitting a lot of the B flat on the beginning of the bar because that really sets up the sound of that C7 sound. It just feels good against the chord. And then when we go to the B Dorian scale, I don't even think about it that much. I just start playing in the key of A, and against my B minor chord, it's just going to sound great. Okay, and I'll just let my ear find the right notes. Okay, so we start off with two arpeggios. I want you to practice that. I want you to practice the major 6 intervals in C mixo, and that'll give you a good thing to work on for the next couple of days or maybe for the next week. So practice hard, and I'll see you on the next lesson. Take it easy.